makers. I know people that are so good.
But then he appoints Pam and says this as she's about to be sworn in. Here.
She's going to restore fair, equal, and impartial justice and restore the constitutional rule of law in America. She will lead the Democrats. At least she's going to lead them right down. But I think she's going to be as impartial as you can possibly be. I know.
But you got to love how he notes the fact that she's going to be as fair as she can be considering the Democrats. Nice qualification. And he's going to end weaponization, right? Not.
I'm not sure if there's a possibility of totally, but she's going to be as total as you can get, Gianni, right? Going to end the weaponization of federal law enforcement and restore honesty and integrity at the DOJ and the FBI. And
I know people that are so good.
And then she places the hand on the Bible.
I, Pamela Bondi, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Okay, so listen, something absolutely wild just happened. And honestly, I don't even know where to start with this one. Like, we're talking about one of the biggest legal disasters in modern political history, and it involves Donald Trump, his lawyers, and a leak that has the entire White House in complete chaos right now. So here's what went down. Within the last 48 hours, a secret meeting between Trump and his entire legal team got recorded and leaked to the press. Yeah, you heard that right. A confidential strategy session, the kind that's supposed to be protected by attorney-client privilege, the most sacred thing in the legal world, just got exposed to everyone. And we're not talking about some vague notes here. We're talking about Trump's entire legal playbook for multiple investigations getting dumped into the public domain. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
But then on top of that, once they get ice rolling out there, he makes the even bigger mistake of getting another buddy who used to be a personal lawyer, Alina Hababa, and appoints her U.S. attorney over in New Jersey. This.
so, Alina, I want to congratulate you now. I will ask Pam, our Attorney General, to come up and do the honors of swearing in. And
I know people that are so good.
And then again, Pam, like it's a babushka set, gets to swear her in and put the hand on the Bible.
I do solemnly swear
I, Alina Habba, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
I know the best deal makers.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
That are so good.
But he still knows the best people, right? Except for the fact that what then happened at this detention center with the Newark mayor? Whoopsie poop. Little bit of a mistake in this actual legal case. Here.
Newark Mayor Ras Baraka announced today he's filing a lawsuit against interim U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, Alina Habba. Baraka is suing them for false arrest and malicious prosecution, and he's suing Habba for defamation after he was arrested and detained by ICE agents outside the Immigration Detention Center, Delaney Hall, on May 9th. The charges were later dropped, and the federal judge overseeing the case issued a rare rebuke of Habba's actions.
And when it's all said and done in this breaking story, what happened? Oh, yeah. Some of that evidence, because everybody had a camera, just magically disappeared. Weird. Here is the breaking story. Breaking news. Trump DOJ admits to deleting politicized social media posts in controversial indictment. President Donald Trump's Justice Department admitted to a federal judge on Tuesday that the agency's social media accounts have taken down several controversial posts that politicize the actions of a member of Congress they indicted, according to CBS News' Scott MacFarlane. The issue stems from a visit made by several New Jersey politicians, including multiple members of Congress, to Delaney Hall, a private for-profit immigrant detention facility in Newark, after clashes with law enforcement that briefly saw the arrest and release of Newark Mayor Ras Baraka.
Come on. How does this even happen? Like, this is supposed to be impossible. Attorney-client privilege exists specifically to prevent this exact scenario. But here we are, and the fallout is absolutely insane. Now, Trump's legal team is going ballistic. They're publicly blaming the Justice Department, calling this a coordinated campaign to destroy Trump's defense and reputation. They're demanding an immediate internal investigation. And honestly, can you blame them? Whether you love Trump or hate him, this is a massive breach of legal ethics, and it raises some seriously disturbing questions about how our justice system operates. But here's where it gets even crazier. The leaked meeting allegedly revealed Trump's strategies for handling the classified documents case, the ongoing special counsel investigations, and pretty much every legal battle he's facing right now. We're talking about his entire defense strategy, laid out in detail, now available for prosecutors to study and counter. One legal analyst called this perhaps the most consequential breach of legal secrecy in modern U.S. political history. And yeah, that's not hyperbole. Think about what this means for a second. Prosecutors now have unprecedented insight into Trump's legal thinking, his team's approach, their weaknesses, everything. It's like playing poker, and your opponent suddenly gets to see all your cards before you play them. The game is over before it even starts. In the White House, total panic mode. Sources say there's been non-stop emergency meetings, frantic damage control, and a lot of very angry people trying to figure out who's responsible for this disaster. Because make no mistake, this is a disaster, not just for Trump, but for the entire concept of legal representation in America. Here's the thing though, and this is what makes this story so explosive. We don't know who leaked it. Was it someone inside Trump's legal team? Was it government surveillance? Was it a hack? Nobody's saying, but the implications of each possibility are absolutely terrifying in their own way. If it was someone on Trump's legal team, that's a betrayal of the highest order and a violation of professional ethics that should result in disbarment. If it was government surveillance, we're talking about potential constitutional violations and abuse of power. If it was a hack, that means our most sensitive legal communications aren't secure and anyone could be vulnerable. On social media, this story has absolutely exploded. Hashtags like Trump leak and White House panic are trending everywhere. Pro-Trump influencers are going crazy, saying this proves the system is rigged against him and that there's an orchestrated effort to destroy him before 2026 midterms and beyond. Anti-Trump people are celebrating, saying this shows his legal strategies were desperate and flawed all along. But here's what nobody's talking about, and this is wild. If this can happen to a former president with unlimited resources and top-tier legal representation, it can happen to anyone. The precedent this sets is absolutely dangerous, because once you destroy attorney-client privilege for political reasons, you've opened Pandora's box. You can't close it again. And let's be real here. Regardless of how you feel about Trump, this should scare you, because today it's him. Tomorrow, it could be a political figure you actually support. The rules that protect one person's legal rights protect everyone's legal rights. When those rules get thrown out the window for convenience or political gain, we all lose. So buckle up, because we're about to dive deep into this mess. We're going to break down exactly what was in these leaked meetings, why this is way bigger than just another Trump controversy, and what it means for the future of legal representation in America. This is the kind of story that changes everything, and most people have no idea just how serious this actually is. Alright, so let's get into the details here, because this situation is even more complicated than it looks on the surface. And trust me, it looks pretty complicated already. First, we need to understand what attorney-client privilege actually is and why it matters. Like, this isn't just some technical legal thing that lawyers care about. This is a foundational principle of our entire justice system. The idea is simple. If you can't speak freely and honestly with your lawyer without fear of that conversation being used against you, then you can't actually defend yourself properly. You can't get real legal advice. You can't mount an effective defense. The whole system falls apart. And yeah, that protection applies to everyone. It doesn't matter if you're accused of jaywalking or major federal crimes. It doesn't matter if you're popular or unpopular. It doesn't matter if you're Donald Trump or just some regular person. The privilege exists to ensure fair representation under the law, period. So when that privilege gets violated, especially in such a public and dramatic way, it's not just bad for the person involved. It undermines trust in the entire legal system. Because if lawyers and clients can't trust that their conversations will remain confidential, then the whole attorney-client relationship becomes worthless. Now let's talk about what was actually in these leaked meetings. According to the reports, and keep in mind we're getting this information from secondary sources, because the actual recordings haven't been fully released, Trump and his legal team were discussing strategies for multiple ongoing investigations. The classified documents case was apparently a major focus. You know, the whole Mar-a-Lago situation, where the FBI conducted that raid and found classified materials. Trump's lawyers were reportedly discussing how to handle the fact that his legal team had previously certified they'd handed over all classified documents, and then more were discovered later. Can you believe this? Like, that's a pretty significant problem from a legal standpoint, because it raises questions about whether Trump's lawyers were misled or whether they were part of some kind of obstruction. The leaked discussions allegedly showed Trump's team trying to navigate this minefield, figuring out how to explain the discrepancy without throwing anyone under the bus or admitting to anything that could be used as evidence of intentional wrongdoing. And now prosecutors get to hear exactly how they were planning to handle it. That's huge. They were also apparently discussing the special counsel investigations more broadly, how to respond to certain witness testimonies, which legal arguments to prioritize, potential plea strategies, everything. Basically, prosecutors now have a roadmap of Trump's entire legal defense. They know which arguments Trump's team thinks are strongest, which witnesses they're most worried about, where they see vulnerabilities. It's like, imagine you're preparing for the biggest trial of your life, and someone gives your opponent your entire playbook. Every strategy, every backup plan, every piece of information your lawyers think is important. How are you supposed to get a fair trial under those circumstances? Seriously, how? And here's where the politics really come into play. Trump's allies are absolutely convinced this was a deliberate leak orchestrated by the Justice Department or other government actors to sabotage his defense. They're pointing to the timing, the fact that these investigations have been ongoing for years, but this leak happens now, and they're saying it's all part of a coordinated effort to prevent Trump from mounting an effective legal defense. And honestly, you don't have to be a Trump supporter to see why that argument has some weight to it. The timing is suspicious, the scale of the leak is unprecedented, and the damage to Trump's legal position is catastrophic. If this was intentional, if someone in a position of power deliberately leaked these conversations to harm Trump's defense, that's not just unethical, that's potentially criminal. That's obstruction of justice, that's abuse of power. But here's the flip side, and this is where it gets messy. Some legal experts are suggesting that Trump's own behavior might have created vulnerabilities in the attorney-client privilege. There are certain situations where that privilege can be waived or doesn't apply. For example, if lawyers are being used to further a crime or fraud, the privilege doesn't protect those communications. If Trump was using attorney meetings to coordinate witness tampering or evidence destruction, those conversations wouldn't be protected. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened. We don't know, but that's the argument some people are making. They're saying maybe these communications weren't actually privileged in the first place because they crossed certain legal lines. But even if that's true, and that's a big if, it doesn't explain how they got leaked to the press. Even non-privileged communications between lawyers and clients are supposed to remain confidential unless they're properly introduced as evidence in court. So no matter how you slice it, someone did something very wrong here. Either the privilege was violated or non-privileged, but still confidential communications were improperly leaked. Either way, it's a serious legal and ethical breach. Let's talk about the political implications, because come on, this is absolutely going to impact the broader political landscape. Trump's base is more energized than ever. They see this as proof positive that the system is rigged against him, that there's a deep state conspiracy to prevent him from governing effectively, that Democrats and establishment Republicans are working together to destroy him through any means necessary. And you know what? Whether that's actually true or not, it's what millions of people believe, and that belief has real consequences. It further erodes trust in institutions, it deepens political polarization, it makes compromise in normal political discourse even harder than it already is. On the other side, Trump's critics are saying this leak shows how desperate his legal situation really is. They're arguing that if his strategies are this concerning, if his lawyers are this worried, then he must actually be guilty of serious crimes. They're saying the leak is a good thing because it exposes potential obstruction or other illegal activity. But here's the problem with that argument, and this is important. Even if Trump is guilty of everything he's accused of, he still has the right to a fair legal process. He still has the right to attorney-client privilege. He still has the right to mount a defense without having his legal strategies exposed to his opponents. Those rights exist specifically to protect people who are accused of crimes, especially serious crimes, because the alternative is a system where the government can just steamroll anyone they want without due process. And if we're willing to abandon those principles for Trump because we don't like him, then we're setting a precedent that those principles don't really matter, that they can be discarded whenever it's politically convenient. And that's dangerous no matter which side of the political spectrum you're on. Social media has been absolutely going crazy with this story. The hashtags I mentioned earlier, Trump leak and White House panic, have millions of posts. You've got pro-Trump influencers posting videos claiming this is the smoking gun that proves government corruption. You've got anti-Trump accounts celebrating and sharing analysis of what the leak strategies supposedly reveal. It's a complete feeding frenzy. In the mainstream media, they're having a field day. Every cable news network is covering this nonstop. Legal analysts are being brought on to speculate about the implications. Former prosecutors are weighing in on whether this constitutes witness tampering or obstruction. It's wall-to-wall coverage, and it's only going to get more intense as more details emerge. But here's what's getting lost in all the noise. The fundamental question of how this happened and who's responsible. Because until we answer that question, we can't actually fix the problem. We can't prevent it from happening again. And we can't restore trust in the legal system. The irony here is wild. Like Trump spent years complaining about leaks from his administration. Remember all those stories about anonymous White House sources feeding information to the press? Trump was furious about those leaks, calling them treasonous, demanding investigations. And now here we are with potentially the most damaging leak of his entire political career, except this time it's his legal strategy getting exposed instead of policy discussions or internal drama. Okay, so let's break this down into the key points you actually need to understand. Because there's a lot of noise around this story, a lot of hot takes and partisan spin, but there are really 3 or 4 core issues that matter. Point 1, attorney-client privilege just took a massive hit. Whether you care about Trump or not, this is a big deal for anyone who might ever need a lawyer. And yeah, that's potentially everyone. The idea that your confidential legal conversations could be recorded and leaked to damage you, that's terrifying. It means you can't actually trust the system to protect your rights. And once that trust is gone, it's incredibly hard to get back. Think about it like this. If you were accused of a crime tomorrow, any crime, would you feel comfortable being completely honest with your lawyer? If you thought those conversations might end up on the evening news, would you share all the details, all the potentially embarrassing or incriminating information? If you knew it could be leaked? Probably not. And that means you couldn't actually get proper legal representation. Your lawyer couldn't give you accurate advice because they wouldn't have all the facts. You'd be flying blind. That's what this leak has done. It's created a situation where high-profile people and potentially anyone involved in politically sensitive cases can't trust the legal system to protect their rights. And that's a crisis. Point 2, the timing and targeting of this leak raises serious questions about political weaponization of the justice system. Look, Trump has been under investigation for years now. Multiple investigations, multiple prosecutors, multiple legal battles. But this leak happens right when, the political stakes are incredibly high. When Trump is trying to govern and his opponents are trying to undermine his administration at every turn. Is that a coincidence? Maybe, but it's a pretty convenient coincidence for people who want to damage Trump politically and legally. And even if it is a coincidence, the perception that the justice system is being weaponized for political purposes is almost as damaging as the reality. Because once people lose faith in the impartiality of law enforcement and prosecution, the whole system loses legitimacy. And here's the thing, this isn't just a Trump issue. We've seen concerns about political prosecution on both sides of the aisle for years now. Conservatives thought the Russia investigation was a political witch hunt. Liberals thought the Hunter Biden laptop stuff was politically motivated. People across the spectrum worry that prosecutors choose cases based on politics rather than evidence. This leak amplifies all of those concerns to an extreme degree. Point 3, prosecutors now have an unfair advantage that could compromise the entire legal process. This is huge. Like imagine you're on a jury in a Trump trial, and you find out that prosecutors had access to all of his legal strategies before the trial even started. Would you think that trial was fair? Would you trust the verdict? Even if Trump is ultimately convicted of crimes, there will always be questions about whether it was because the evidence was strong or because prosecutors had an unfair advantage. That reasonable doubt, that question of fairness, it taints everything that comes after. And defense attorneys in other cases are already pointing to this situation as a reason for mistrial motions or appeals. If the precedent is set that privileged communications can be leaked and used against defendants, every criminal case becomes vulnerable to similar arguments. The entire legal system gets more chaotic and less reliable. Point 4, we still don't know who's responsible, and that's maybe the scariest part. Was it an inside leak from someone on Trump's legal team? Was it surveillance by government agencies? Was it a hack by foreign or domestic actors? Each possibility is deeply disturbing in its own way. If it was an insider, that means someone with a duty of loyalty and confidentiality betrayed their client in the most fundamental way possible. That person should face serious professional and legal consequences. But it also means Trump's inner circle has been compromised, that he can't trust his own team, and that creates chaos in his legal defense going forward. If it was government surveillance, we're talking about potential constitutional violations. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. If the government was monitoring Trump's attorney meetings without proper legal authorization, that's a massive abuse of power. And if they were authorized to do it, that raises even bigger questions about how surveillance powers are being used against political figures. If it was a hack, that means our communications infrastructure isn't secure enough to protect sensitive legal conversations. And if hackers can get to Trump's legal team, they can get to anyone. That's a national security problem that goes way beyond politics. So where does this leave us? Honestly, in a pretty dark place. The trust that's supposed to exist between lawyers and clients has been damaged. The perception that our justice system is fair and impartial has taken another hit. And the precedent that's been set that privileged communications can be leaked and weaponized for political purposes, That's going to have ripple effects for years. Trump's legal team is demanding an investigation, and honestly, they should get one. Someone needs to figure out how this happened, who was responsible, and what consequences they should face. Because without accountability, this will happen again. Maybe to Trump, maybe to his political opponents, maybe to regular people who just happen to end up in high-profile cases. The broader political implications are also massive. Trump's supporters are more convinced than ever that he's the victim of a coordinated attack by establishment powers who fear his challenge to the status quo. Whether that's accurate or not,